ain't posing camera, bro.
Yeah, you saying it?
Can't even see you. Ugly ass nigga.
Yeah, yeah. Put me in the bed. Put me in
Alright, chat. New video day. New reaction video. Tight. You feel me? 2025 Corvette Zr1. Full review and drag race. Versus Ferrari, Lamborghini. You feel me? All the big names.
There is a new king of the hill. In other words, a Corvette with a Zr1 badge. You're going to hear everyone say, that is an American Ferrari. Then you're going to hear me say, no, it is absolutely not. But it could be an American Lamborghini. Oh, come on. Which
That camera is so what? That camera is so nice. Making these cars look amazing. I got the highest quality on. I gotta make sure. And it's making it look like that in 1080. I'm gonna put it in 4K. Got stamp it.
think I was going to do with three 1,000 horsepower supercars. Let's go.
It ran him down. And you know that Revolto electric. So it's good off the line. But is he gonna get chased down? It just got chased down by V6 for the twin turbos. And them, I think they said them just V6s. I think they said it. We finna see.
Wow. That settles that. The Corvette Zr1 is not supercar fast. The Corvette Zr1 is hypercar fast.
Let me change it. Put me over here. Put me over here.
It is so easy to say, this is unprecedented. A Corvette has never been this powerful. A Corvette has never been this fast. A Corvette has never been so unhinged. But you're forgetting, this isn't just a Corvette. This is a ZR1. Hey, do you love your collectible car? Well, then insure it like you do with a guaranteed value policy from Haggerty, the company that protects cars as if they were our own. Visit jasonsentme.com to get a quote. This is the Corvette we all knew was coming. We learned a year ago that the ZR1 would have the largest flat plane crank V8 in the world, supplemented by the 2 largest turbochargers ever fitted to a production car. And that is a recipe for the most powerful regular production V8 ever.
Well, I lied. It is a V8 with 2 twin turbos. Yep, fast.
It makes 64 horsepower plus 1,000, and it does that on 93 octane pump gas. None of that unhealthy corn syrup needed. That is more power than a Bugatti Veyron, using half as many cylinders with half as many turbos, and importantly sent to half as many wheels. 1,064, by the way, if you suck at math. 1,064 horsepower, see that? 64 plus 1,000 is 1,064, and it's a lot of power. That is so much twist that GM had to expand the bolt pattern in the rear to stop the lugs from shearing through the wheels. Those are 5x120, those are 5x130. This is stuff we already knew. What we didn't know is how on earth this car was going to put down all of that power. Well, I guess not. It doesn't. It can't. It couldn't. Is it too much power? A real tire? Yes. Treat the right pedal like it's not actually connected to an H-bomb, and the ZR1 does a credible impersonation of a car that doesn't want to dig your grave. Off power, it's docile. It loves to rotate, but it does so progressively. The question is only, what happens when you exceed those limits? Once you're back on the power, the transition between grip and slide is infinitesimally small, requiring quick hands to stabilize the car. And then, over the limit, the C8 ZR1 is a 150-pound Rottweiler wearing a thick chain, sunglasses, and full-sleeve tattoos. It'll just...
Yeah, he can drive. He can drive, and that car is made to do that. I don't know if it's made to do that, but he got it to do it. How you drifting? And they said the Mustang was gonna be the first production. Well, it's still first production, but this.
Wants to lick your face and cuddle up for a nap. In a drift, this Corvette is your best friend. A spin? It's just something it doesn't want to do. And this is one of those surprises of the pleasant kind, because the Corvette team has actually managed to make 1,000 horsepower, 2-wheel drive mid-engine car that's friendly. Part of that is because the ZR1 actually reduces engine output in first and second gears. Not so you notice, since it scrambles for traction at anything under interstate speeds. But once you're in third gear, it never stops pulling. 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110, 120. I would say it's Tesla flat fast, but it's faster. With handling.
See how I just the suspension on that junk look nice. I'm gonna take this suspension and put it on my Camaro. What?
And braking to match.
That's nice.
If you think Ferrari isn't paying attention to the Corvette's performance, well, you should know that Ferrari refused to provide any cars for this shoot. So we just rented them, and you can too. That's right, visit Falcon Car Rental's website and use coupon code Haggerty for an up to 35% discount on an exotic car rental. There's a link in the description. The ZR1 that we have here isn't even the most extreme. For the record, the ZR1 that we have here isn't even the most extreme version. There are actually 3 different ZR1s. The base ZR1 does without the huge wing and is good for 233 miles an hour. Or you can get the ZTK package, which includes track-oriented suspension and tires similar to the Z06's, and a functional aero kit good for up to 1,200 pounds of downforce at top speed, which is reduced by some 13 miles an hour. Our ZR1 is the happy medium, combining the base ZR1 suspension tuning and street tires with the ZTK's downforcey aero kits. The ZR1 does lose about half of the regular Corvette's cargo capacity, because up here the space that would be the frunk is now filled with radiators. I guess there's always a sacrifice for ultimate performance. And in the back, well, there's a huge trunk, but the spoiler is in the way. And this car's non-ZTK suspension rides softer, which means it's more livable. And that's very important in a Corvette ZR1, because Corvettes in general, and ZR1s in particular, have always been machines whose hallmark is their ability to do everything well. The first appearance of the name ZR1 wasn't a badge. It was a package for the C3 Corvette in the early 1970s that combined a bunch of mostly existing performance upgrades for competition use. The ZR1 badge and its philosophy was born in 1990 with the first Corvette to wear the badge, the C4 ZR-1. To understand the philosophy of a ZR1, well, we can just ask GM. We have here the press kit for the ZR1. In an era...
It looks good. I like it. I like it. Carly jumped the Hornet when it's in yellow.
Of superlatives, it stands out from the rest, not because of the power, but because it does so many things so well. It is a technology tour de force, a dual personality sports car as accustomed to rush hour traffic as it is to the open road. The ZR1 is a statement that we can do things today no one even dreamed could be done 10 or 20 years ago. Dated 7th of March, 1989. Just about everything said about today's ZR1 is history repeating itself from this original C4 ZR1. This is a machine.
I think everybody wants a vet sometime in their life. I'm not gonna lie to you. I want a C7 though. I still want a C7. C7. C7.
Machine that used all the latest in technology to be great at everything. In other words, ZR1 is just Chevy's code for bandwidth. And regular width. This car's rear end was stretched 3 inches wider than a regular Corvette, but it was done so subtly that nobody could tell. Indeed, subtle was the name of the game. Sort of. Thanks to some of the widest tires of any production car in the world, this thing posted the best skid patch grip the world had ever seen.
Yeah, he driving this jam.
It was so usable, and yet you could fit an entire prancing horse in the trunk. It was named the most capable handling car in the world, and yet, thanks to computer-controlled adaptive dampers, rode so well you could commute in it. Using just about every high-tech trick in the book, the ZR1 made more than 1.5 times as much power as the base Corvette, without any additional displacement. And here in America, at least, you could beat its 175 mile an hour top speed with only one car, the 12-cylinder Ferrari Testarossa. And yet the ZR1 was so efficient that it skirted the gas guzzler tax. Its real party trick was, it was the quickest accelerating car money could buy.
Not the New Balances.
that Ferrari. It out-Ferraried that Ferrari's performance at half the money. Ferrari's V8 sports car, the 348, wasn't even close. Certainly not in acceleration, but also not in handling or braking. Obviously, there's no denying the acoustic allure of a Ferrari flat plane type.
So Corvette's broke man's Ferrari, as they say. Yep.
V8. This Lotus design, 7,000 RPM, 4-cam, 32-valve monster of a 5.7 liter remains one of the most complex musical cross-plane crank V8s ever. Fast, but no class. This was a giant slayer, but it was a Corvette through and through. And in terms of performance, it absolutely pooped on everything.
Yeah, but the C4 is a piece of poop. Isn't it Car and Driver who wrote that the C4 is a rolling embarrassment to America? At least till you hit the gas?
I'm sorry, no. They got that wrong. Every time you're reviewing a ZR1, you're reviewing two cars. Number one, the performance envelope of the ZR1. And then number two, the Corvette upon which it's based.
The C4 is poop.
You call it poop, I call it character. But I would argue that being crappy is part of the Corvette experience. Look, it was a little bit rough around the edges, a little bit uncouth,
Trashy.
trashy, but fun.
The plastic crap-tastic.
I would also continue to argue that the ZR1's performance and its handling, which is mind-blowing, more than made up for any of the C4's deficiencies. And I would continue to argue that, in the face of all the evidence that I'm wrong, the ZR1 cost twice as much as a base Corvette, you couldn't tell them apart, and therefore no one bought them. It was a marketplace failure.
And that was a shame.
I see what you did there. It would take Chevrolet 15 years to resurrect the ZR1 nameplate, skipping the entire C5 generation. When the C6 ZR1 badge appeared, it was missing a hyphen, but followed its predecessor's recipe. 3 inches wider, twice the price, and performance to, shit on everything else.
Once again, it used the best of modern technology for performance. Titanium con rods, carbon fiber body parts, carbon ceramic brakes. In fact, the same carbon ceramic brakes that Ferrari used on the Enzo. And once again, active shocks, but this time they were the magneto-rheological ones that GM had developed and then licensed to Ferrari.
Speaking of which, the ZR1 made 1 1/3 times the power of Ferrari's contemporary F430. No outrageously expensive Lotus engine this time, just 10.5 pounds of boost from a blower on top of the small block. And it made 638 horsepower.
The C6 ZR1 wasn't just a straight line monster. Once again, it had a complete performance envelope. It broke the record for the most skid pad grip ever recorded, and the shortest braking distances.
The whole Need for Speed, what is it, Need for Speed Heat? Yeah, whichever one it was before the cartoon. Crap. That's what I beat the game in, was a Vet. C7 Vet. Yeah. But I always thought Corvettes were like, what if you want to drive and handle good, you would buy a Vet instead of Challengers and the Mustangs. Or Camaro. Camaro is slightly better than the other two that I named. That's why I bought it. But you still gotta change some stuff on it. But this, they always say this one is like always comes straight from factory. Suspension right.
ever measured. And it added up to a production car lap record around Laguna Seca.
Hey, I set that record. I remember. That car drove so well, it was manageable. It was fluid, Jason. I really wanted one of those.
Did you wash your hands?
Yeah, put it there, pal.
No, okay. You wanted one with those seats?
Well, got to agree, the seats were so unsupportive they wouldn't hold a conversation.
Funny. What about the rest of that horrendous interior?
Now that's being harsh.
Is it?
It would be more kind to say it wasn't commensurate with a Corvette that now had a price tag above $100,000.
It wasn't me being nice, it's a quote. An interior that wouldn't pass muster in an $18,000 Hyundai, much less a $105,000 sports car. Their words, not mine.
Jason,
Sorry.
you don't need to quote some inferior journalist to beat up on an iconic sports car. That doesn't absolve you.
Oh, yes, it does. And that's exactly why I brought this magazine in the first place. But the fact is, everyone beat up on that car. They bitched and bitched and bitched about the interior, and I don't agree. I didn't see a problem with it.
I'm with you, man. I thought it looked pretty good inside, except for the seats.
Except for the seats. But that thing was so awesome. It would sit and misfire at idle and just shake the whole car. And then the shifter would break your wrist, and the clutch just kneecapped you. It was so butch.
And best of all, from the outside, it was beautiful. I mean, it was tasteful. It was restrained.
Yeah, it looked like a Ferrari. And in those days, Ferraris looked like Ferraris too. Maranello had stuck with the same formula as 348 became 355, became 360, and then F430. Then, a year after the C6 Zr1 came out, the 458. Each of those Ferraris beat their respective Corvette rivals in refinement and finesse, not to mention interior quality, but none of them could keep pace with the Zr1. That is, until Ferrari finally got serious about speed.
The C7 Zr1 came a decade after the C6 Zr1.
That's what I want. Just look at it. Black out the side markers. That right there would just be goated.
And it was born into a different world. The mid-engine Ferraris had gained turbos and paddle shifts. They were ZR1 quick, so the new ZR1 had to be faster. It was 750 horse. Once again, the most powerful Corvette ever made. And in fact, one of the most powerful...
Dude, plant manager at where I used to work, he has a white ZR1 with the blue guts. Man, that junk looks so nice. The blue, and then he also had a manual RT. I think it was like a 2017 body. I needed his type of money, cause what? Both of them nice. It was black for the Challenger, and then the white with the blue guts. The whites with the blue gut ZR1 just sounded good, looked good. I told him if you want to sell it, let me know.
powerful front engine rear drive cars ever. But it still had trouble keeping up with the turbocharged Ferrari 488. And in trying to, uncontrollable. One of these actually hurt me once. I was coming off a side street. I got a little aggressive with the throttle, kicked the tail out there, I grabbed the steering and I ripped it out of my hands, and I re-injured an almost healed torn rotator cuff. This car is diabolical.
The ZR1 had something the Ferrari 488 didn't, a traction problem. And the only solution was to move the engine behind the driver, just as the Italians had been doing in their sports cars for decades. And the mid-engine car's ability to put power to the ground is, Let's just show you.
Amazing.
Oh, Jesus, that cloud. Abort! Abort! Crap!
You got to that station
Everything worked out
on.
now.
It's just the tires. It's just the tires.
Tires, Chase.
You fought this joint the whole way down, man.
Amateur. Still fun.
The C8 has an easier time putting down 1,064 horsepower than the C7 did 755. Even if Randy had been able to get a perfect launch, the new ZR1 would be a full second quicker through the quarter mile. But he couldn't on Willow's pockmarked surface, and here the C7 was more than 10 car lengths behind. The C8's 9.8 second run makes this easily the quickest accelerating two-wheel drive car we've ever tested here. The mid-engine configuration goes a long way, but its biggest benefit is actually something you'd never have thought of: packaging.
The C7 ZR1's supercharged V8 was so tall that it stuck up through the hood. And that's the only way that forced induction would have been possible. Turbochargers would have made the engine so wide that the factory wouldn't have been able to drop it past the frame rails. And you can't just poke holes in frame rails the way you can in a hood. You also can't just widen them out because you need to leave room for the front wheels to turn. Rear wheels don't have that problem because they don't turn. Plus, it's far less important to see what's behind you, especially when you have 1,000 horsepower. This car has more than enough room for an even wider overhead cam V8, plus turbos on the outside of that, and then intercoolers stacked right on top of the turbos.
The LT7's turbos are part of the exhaust manifold, which are mere inches from the intercoolers, which are in turn right next to the twin intake manifolds that have 60% less volume than the LT6, the Z06's naturally aspirated version of this engine. The result is dramatically reduced turbo lag.
Jason, didn't you tell me this has the largest turbos ever on a production car?
That's what I'm told.
And this
So they said, Audi, we know y'all been putting turbos on stuff for a long time. Y'all overseas people been putting turbos on y'all stuff for a long time. We came here and we're gonna put our American on it, put bigger turbos on it, on a bigger engine. Let's go.
thing feels like a naturally aspirated engine with about 10 liters.
I always think it's a cop-out when people say, this engine feels like it has no lag, because they're usually full of poop. But honestly, I agree with you. At track speeds, this has no lag. It's because GM uses full closed-loop boost control. So it's got a turbo speed sensor and an electronic wastegate, so it knows how fast the turbo's spinning and can play tricks to keep boost even when you're off throttle. So when you get back in, it's perfectly linear.
Well, you need linear response when you have this much power. Look at that. Look at that. You know what? You can't have 1,000 explosive horsepower. You're going to be backwards.
Like the C7.
Like the old C7 would do that for sure.
Look at this side.
I find the C7 and the C8 to be opposites in terms of handling.
Okay.
Now the C7 was always really good into a corner, turned well, really came in hard, but as soon as you tickle that gas pedal, woo, yeah, that thing is snap oversteer, it is trying to kill you. The C8 is really hooked up. I mean, that's all 1,000 right there.
That's 1,000 horsepower.
1,000 horsepower, and you can feel it.
Right? It's almost docile in its response. Look, trail this in, you'll get a lovely little rotation. Get back on a power. Oh, look at that!
Try that in a C7. It'll be off the road. Every other 1,000 horsepower car I've driven, and I've driven several, is on the ragged edge all the time. Zr1 is not. This thing's hooked.
I've said since the C8 came out, I expect much better things from GM chassis guys than I expect from most other car companies, because when they're good, they're so good. This is one of their so good moments. Things spectacular.
I am with you all the way.
Blazing around a racetrack is one thing, but the Zr1 needs to work as a car on roads where it'll be the vast majority of the time. And it's great. It's got talkative steering, even at low speed, something that's missing from regular Corvettes. And it's got this other great feature where you look in the rearview mirror and nothing exists except the spoiler. You can see literally nothing. But all that composure on the racetrack is replaced by genuine fear of that gas pedal, because violent wheel spin is always looming as a reminder that 1,000 horsepower road cars probably should not be legal.
No.
This car belongs in a different world, a world without speed limits or city streets or reckless driving tickets. Fact is, either the car is bored or you're going to jail.
Being incredibly civilized has been the defining characteristic of the C8 Corvette since it launched. It took 8 generations to get here, but the Corvette has finally addressed all the constant journalistic whining about how crappy the interior is. And GM has already revealed a new, even better interior that wasn't present in this pre-production ZR1. Fact is, the interior of the C8 works as a car.
It has to. It's a Corvette, and so it's being asked to do things other supercars aren't asked to do, like fit golf clubs or allow corpulent Americans to get in and out, or commute as comfortably as a Camry and get good gas mileage while doing so. That is a hell of an engineering achievement, but it's also a double-edged sword, because a car that beats you up a little is always going to feel more special.
In every previous Corvette, the whole driving experience was high effort, high drama. The controls were heavy, everything vibrated. It might have been capable of a lot, but you needed to grab it by the scruff of the neck and force it.
They had a very clear personality. You never needed a reminder that you were in a Corvette. Spoiler.
That is not necessarily the case with the C8 ZR1.
Having a V8 with a flat plane crankshaft is a big part of the ZR1's, I don't want to call it lack of identity. But case in point, you were just listening to a Ferrari V8, not the Corvettes. Okay, obviously sounding exactly like a Ferrari is not a bad thing, but I think cars are at their best when they have their own very clear identity. Be your own freak and let that flag fly. Hey, you recognize these two things as Corvettes blindfolded and deaf. The C8 never felt like a Corvette from behind the wheel, and the ZR1 doesn't sound like a Corvette. That car is very clearly a copy inspired by where Ferrari was.
If we look at Ferrari's V8 mid-engine lineup in the years since the last ZR1, the 488 actually split into 2 cars, the F8 and the SF90, both with flat-plane crank V8s and twin turbos, with or without a hybrid system. The F8 was an exact philosophical match for our ZR1, just with 353 fewer horsepower, which is a ridiculous thing to say.
The 986 horsepower SF90 is an exact match for the forthcoming Corvette Zr1, the industry's worst kept secret. That will marry the ZR1's engine with electric power up front like the Corvette E-Ray has. Thing about the F8 and SF90 Ferraris is, though, nobody seemed to notice them. The Ferrari of the moment is actually the 296. This was a radical departure because it ditched some of Ferrari's overwrought styling, the spoilers and the slats and the grills and the aggression, and it returned to a more elegant, more gentlemanly form.
That seat does not look comfortable, but it reminds me of the center seats, but with a little bit more padding. It's a driver's car. Yeah, let me guess, the top comes off.
It's got this lightness of controls that has become a Ferrari trademark. And the entire car feels massless in the way that it just turns and reacts. It's unmatched. It has flappy pedals on the column where they belong. You could be blindfolded with earplugs in, and you know immediately you are driving a Ferrari.
Ferrari has moved on from the flat plane crank V8 recipe it created, and to be honest, that's for the better. This 120-degree V6 is far more musical and far more sensual. You can be fooled for a few seconds into thinking it's a V12, which is, of course, the engine configuration that made Ferrari famous to begin with.
This is a car that knows exactly what it is. It's 100% Ferrari. And the Revuelto is a Lamborghini through and through. I mean, just look at it. It's all angles and slats and grills and anger. And I admit, bringing a flagship V12 supercar Lamborghini into a ZR1 episode isn't an exact match, but this is the only Lamborghini sports car you can buy right now, and I needed you to see it next to the Corvette Zr1. Look at these two cars, and tell me the Lamborghini doesn't actually look a bit restrained next to the Corvette.
Look at them, the three grills at the bottom, three different sections. Look at them. The headlights on the Revuelto look cool though. The three little specters. But the hood on the Vette looks so good with how it goes down like that, almost like a Ferrari type.
Tell me the Corvette doesn't look more like a Lamborghini than it does like today's Ferraris.
ZR1 and Lamborghini are about to get even more similar because the forthcoming Temerario ditches Lamborghini's harrowing naturally aspirated V10 in favor of, you guessed it, a twin turbocharged flat plane crank V8. Just like the Corvette Zr1, following perfectly in the footsteps of Ferrari, or more accurately, where Ferrari used to be.
What we're seeing is a parallel to the car industry as a whole. Everything is converging on one formula, on one personality, on one goal. Speed.
And to get there, the Corvette is using Ferrari's old formula, beating Lamborghini to the punch. It's easy to say that the C8 switch to a mid-engine layout enabled it to graduate from an American sports car to a world-beating supercar. It's also easy to forget that every previous ZR1 has trounced those world-beating supercars, too.
This new one, thanks to the C8 itself, has lost a little bit of that Corvette identity. Unless, of course, the word Corvette is just code for performance. Because in terms of performance, this really is king of the hill. In other words, it's a real ZR1!
Alright, so subscribe, like, share, do all of those things that just popped up across your screen and still popping up across your screen. Okay, I understand this is the first reaction video in a minute, and it's okay. Link in the description from the original video.